This episode should probably start off with like a close up of an eye and some grim landscapes of future LA.
Or we could just do like a really monotonous voiceover, which would be hilarious since we're only an audio medium anyway, so
That's pretty good.
kind of actually makes sense for what we're doing here rather than this movie. Which I didn't even watch that version anyway, so...
Yeah, me neither.
I figured you didn't.
Guess so either one of those things will work for an intro. Welcome everyone to Afterthoughts. This is a podcast where we rewatch movies and we compare our first and second impressions, as well as discuss a related topic. My name is Joshua Kazemi, and I'm here with my co-host, Cole, the Cole Man, Taylor Thomas.
That's me. I don't know. Guess I was going for a Batman today. I don't know.
That's good. Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll throw out the Batman. Today we're talking about Blade Runner in honor of Blade Runner 2049.
2049, which looks sweet, by the way. I just saw another trailer, and I think it looks awesome. But that's just because there's a lot of explosions in it. It could totally just be eye candy. We'll see.
Who knows? I have my reservations about it, but we'll get into it at the end. Yeah, because it sort of would spoil this whole episode.
Let's go.
All right. So before we dive in, Coleman's going to take us through the plot of Blade Runner as best he can.
we'll run right through this.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're in the vast distant future of, I think, the year around 2020. I can't remember.
2019.
There we go.
Yeah. So
distant in the future. JK. This movie was made in 1982, so I think it's hilarious when we go back and look to see what they thought the near future would be like. But anyways, in this different timeline, I guess now is what we would call it, there are replicants, and these are essentially created humans who are created and sold, and they'll, just like any android or robot movie, they'll do work for you. There are, we see a kind of militaristic version, a woman version that's like, I think they call it like the pleasure version or whatever.
Right, yeah.
Things like that. And so that's essentially what they are, but they have a very short lifespan. I think 4 years. Mm-hmm. And 4 of them are currently on the loose, and they were on an off-world colony that we hear about, and to get back they killed an entire crew of a ship and passengers, which I think was about 23 people, and they hijack the ship and then are back in LA or wherever this movie takes place. And they, no one really knows what they're up to, but they're obviously highly dangerous. And we know that replicants are typically more powerful and stronger and sometimes smarter than just your average human. And the only way they can really point them out is they have a different emotional capacity. And so Harrison Ford's character, Rick Deckard, is called Blade Runner, and he is really good at finding these replicants, and they call it retiring them, because when you kill a replicant, it's not killing them, it's retiring them since they're a product. And he is essentially just looking for these 4 that are, we don't really know what they're up to or what they're doing, and it's about his neo-noir journey to finding these 4 replicants that are on the loose.
Yes.
That's really it.
I've always wanted to see Blade Runner, and I had never seen it up until like 2.5 weeks ago.
I am pretty much in the same boat as you. I always wanted to see Blade Runner and saw it about a month and a half ago.
There you go. And then we both saw it this week for the podcast. So we still have a first and second impression, but they're pretty close to each other.
Yeah.
in watches at least.
I am curious what it would have been like if they were much further apart, but I also don't think they would be that much different, so.
Okay. Man, okay, so this is interesting because you've told me off the podcast like a vague general impression that you have of this. So this is going to be interesting because, and I guess I'm spoiling it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I really liked this movie.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm speaking just first impression. I really liked it once it was over. Once the credits rolled and the movie was finally done saying what it was trying to say, I was like, yeah, I understand why this movie is talked about a lot. I see the appeal, and I really liked it. And the more I thought about it in the 2 weeks, the more and more I liked it.
I hated this movie.
Yeah,
so
I know that.
Oh, and it's such a cult classic, so I feel like so many people are going to hate me, but I did not like this movie. One thing, though, I'd always wanted to see it, and one thing I had always heard, though, is that, it might, but it's really boring. Like, some people really like it, but it's, like, known for also being really boring and not what you expect. And that's not why I ended up not liking it. I don't think it's a boring movie at all. I think it keeps your attention and has ideas behind it, but I don't think it's boring. I just don't like it.
I wouldn't have said boring, but like there were times where I felt like I was intentionally in the dark, and so it felt to me like the movie was aimless or unfocused at times because I just wasn't, I guess, connecting the dots on my own until the end. You know, it's like, especially in the beginning, if you don't really know much about the movie, you're not really quite sure where we're going with this or what's trying to be said. But once it finishes and you sort of look back at it in your head, I think it all makes sense. But there were times it felt, I would say, aimless and unfocused, not necessarily boring. I do understand why some people might call it boring, though.
Yeah.
Like, Molly watched it with me in the second time around, and I think she would definitely describe it as boring.
So after having concluded the movie, what did you find that you liked about it after it was over? That
I like how gray these like morals and ideas are in the movie. I think there's a lot of really complicated character stuff and ideas that are going on that I really like. And I feel like since Blade Runner, and probably before, I guess, but there's always been, in media, there's always been the story of an evil robot. And I just really like this one. Like these ideas of what it means to be human, even though there are creatures like replicants in this world. And I like that balance, and I feel like it goes back and forth, and it's all really gray. It's not like good guys or bad guys or good things and bad things. It's just like this spectrum that random characters are on throughout the whole movie. Everyone shifts back and forth. And it's just, I feel like the movie's really meaty and there's a lot to talk about and to deconstruct. And I just liked all of that. It worked for me.
I won't even get into those kind of aspects of the movie for my first impression. Because first impression, I think what really just destroyed my crystal castle was that I just had such an idea of what this movie would be and built it up in my head, and it was none of that. I knew it was about replicants and whether they're human or not, and I like made up what this movie would be about in my head, and it completely and totally wasn't. And I mean, that's to be expected because obviously, I don't know. And I had not seen the trailer or known anything about this. I had only heard what this movie was about, and then based all of my ideas and thoughts of what this movie would be about based on what people told me about it, rather than seeing like a trailer or a scene or anything. And so I just like made up a movie in my head, and this movie was not it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what ruined my initial first impression.
Okay.
Instead of rather than the ideas and stuff behind it, just like, oh, this isn't like at all what I thought it would be.
Uh-huh. I've always avoided any conversations about Blade Runner because I didn't want to spoil it or ruin it, and I wasn't really even sure if there was something to spoil or ruin. But yeah, I knew it was about replicants, so I thought maybe there's a twist there somewhere, and I just don't want to have any information on it. So I went into it pretty blank.
I also
except that I knew you didn't like it.
Yeah. I went into it pretty blank too, but that's what I'm saying. So I knew very vague things about the movie, like very, very vague, and then built my idea of the movie around these extreme vague ideas. So that's why it was nothing of what I thought it would be, and nothing was spoiled either. So
another thing is that I thought the movie, it looks amazing, and I really like the visual language in the movie, and and the sets are amazing. Like, just the design of it all, I think, is so cool. I feel like every single, like, post-apocalyptic / future environment owes everything to Blade Runner. You know, it's just so clearly influenced so many other movies, and it's just awesome. I really like the look and feel of the whole thing.
Yeah, I like the look and feel for sure. Which is hilarious. I won't get into this yet either, but I didn't watch the actual other versions of the movie. I only watched the final cut, but I like looked up some other videos of like additional things. I looked up the alternate ending, and it's funny how the alternate ending will take you so much out of that. Have you seen it?
No.
Well, we can talk about it in second impression,
Okay.
but it would. I'm glad I didn't watch that version because it would have completely destroyed like every other set piece about this movie. But yeah, no, I agree. You can tell how this movie completely influences future movies, and the aesthetic is really awesome.
Yeah,
and I did enjoy that aspect of it, and I thought it looked really well for 1982.
Yeah, it holds up. So what did you expect in a rewatch?
Oh, I didn't. Pretty much what I got. I didn't expect to like it again.
Okay.
I mean, I tried to be open, but it was hard. I was like, no.
I was really excited to watch this again because I figured I would enjoy it more and just pick up on more things now that you're in on it and you can start from the beginning and see the pieces coming together. So I was excited. I was looking forward to watching it again. I also tried to distance these viewings as far apart as I could.
Yeah.
I figured that would be better for the podcast. So
yeah.
Is this it? Are we going into seconds?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. I liked it even more.
Oh my gosh, you're such a joke. I hated it even more.
I enjoyed it so much more. And like at the times that I thought it was aimless and unfocused in my first viewing, I totally was on board with this time around. And it's still not the most enjoyable movie. Like I'm not going to pop it in on like a night I want like to watch a feel good movie or whatever, but I definitely enjoyed it way more the second time around.
Well, I hated it way more, and I don't know. It just is. It's just not my movie. It's not mine, and
okay,
I don't think it ever will be. So, why'd you enjoy it so much more?
So the crux of it all is like, what does it mean to be human? And I like all of that so much, and I like that you know, through Harrison Ford's character, we get this conflicted view of what it means to be human. Like he's this former Blade Runner. Like he starts the movie, he's already quit being a Blade Runner, and so from the get-go, I feel like he's this conflicted guy who doesn't want to chase them down anymore. And then he meets a replicant that doesn't know she's a replicant, and that conflicts him even more. And when he first meets her, they do the test, and then later she goes to his apartment, and he tears her down. And it's like, your memories aren't real, and he tears her down, and he almost immediately regrets doing that. And so I don't know, just the whole movie to me through Harrison Ford's character is this conflict of what does it mean to be human, what does it mean to be non-human, but all of the humans in the movie are cold and calculated and like merciless almost, while the replicants care for one another. They want to know how everyone's doing. Like the other replicants, they mourn each other's deaths, and oftentimes they appear way more human than the humans do. And I like that duality because it's not just that either. There are times when they teeter back and forth, where Harrison Ford shows compassion, or where the replicants are merciless. You know, it goes back and forth. Because humanity is complex, and so are these characters. And I like that it's so committed to that gray complexity the whole movie. And it's just, I loved it.
All right. Well, before we get into what I thought, because you're kind of bringing up the point then, like about being the difference between replicant and human, do you think Deckard is a replicant?
I do not. I think he's not, and I think it's dumb that people think he is.
Why?
Because he doesn't show any signs of being a replicant. It's like an interesting idea that he might be, but there's no proof.
That's not true.
Nothing to suggest it. What's the proof?
There's a huge suggestion.
Yeah, is it the unicorn thing?
Of course it's the unicorn thing.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
Why don't you buy it?
I think that's like a red herring at best. He can't fight any of the replicants. He doesn't show any signs of being stronger or smarter than the replicants.
I agree with that. I actually laughed about that when I saw it the second time. I was like, wow, he gets trashed if he's a replicant.
Yeah, if he's a replicant, then he sucks at being a replicant. And the sequel is 2049. He's still alive. If there's a time limit on replicants, he doesn't have one.
I know, but we're not talking 2049 yet.
I know. But I just, like, to me, there's not enough. To me, it just is like another fan theory. I don't
Well,
buy
why
it.
isn't the unicorn enough, and why do they focus on the unicorn specifically in two specific scenes?
I think it's supposed to mirror the struggle within him of what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a replicant? I think he mirrors us. We're trying to figure it out. He's trying to figure it out. So there's imagery going on with Deckard of like, what does it mean to be human or a replicant? I think it's just symbolic.
So you think that guy making an origami of a unicorn is just coincidence and symbolic?
Yeah, and I think the one at the very end of the movie is just that guy's way of telling Deckard, I know that you're with her, and I know that you're gonna to run off.
But he doesn't know about the unicorn, so
he doesn't know that Harrison's dreaming about them. But he was doing them before the dream. He does it throughout the whole movie. He's just always making origami thingies. Yeah, but who cares?
I think there is still, I mean, I don't know how I feel, but I still think there's emphasis on the fact that he drops this unicorn origami on the floor and picks it up and dreamed of it earlier.
Yeah.
Not to say that's for sure he's a replicant, but I don't know. I think there's more focus on the fact that this guy made him an origami unicorn rather than just like, oh, it's symbolism.
Yeah.
But you're right. With the emergence of 2049, it kind of does just...
He does, but Ryan Gosling does ask him in the trailer, I have some questions for you. And I think he's implying that he wants him to take the eye test or whatever. So who knows what'll happen. But I still think, like, you know, we're as the audience, you're asking yourself, what's the difference between replicants and humans? And I think to have the main character potentially be a replicant himself is just part of that. It's just part of the way that we relate to that character. Even our main character we're unsure of whether or not he's a replicant or human. I think it's all just through that element of the movie imagery and metaphor.
And I'll agree with that. I think it's better that we don't know if he's a replicant or a human. It reinforces what you're talking, the aspect you're talking about. Mm-hmm. That, like, what is it to be human? And these replicants are more human, but we don't treat them like humans. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And that is a cool aspect of the movie. And so I like the ideas of the movie and everything you're mentioning. I just think they're very surface level. And I think that's what does it for me. That's what doesn't do it for me.
I knew it. See, that's pretty much on line with what Molly was saying. She only watched it once, but I think she's saying essentially what you are, that she thought these were cool ideas and she wanted to really dig her teeth into them instead of like, you know, what the movie does. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, even the like climax of Roy going to Tyrell and he is just asking for more life and then Tyrell's like, can't do it. And then he kills him. It's just like so anticlimactic. I don't know. It's like not... We didn't really delve into what it means to be human and replicant. Sure, there's surface level cool ideas, what we're talking about right now. Like, oh, the replicants can act more human than the humans. And does that make them more human even though we don't treat them as humans? And that's cool. But I don't feel like we actually really dug into the philosophy of like, what does it mean to be human? And what does this mean for the replicants? Just kind of things unfold throughout the movie. And there are some scenes that we could have taken out that aren't that exciting that I think we could have added those in. Like when he's chasing those two random replicants. I don't know. That part of the movie doesn't even... I don't really care for that scene.
Snake Woman? Is that what you're talking about?
I know it's supposed to be like a neo-noir detective kind of thing going on, and he deduces where she is and finds her and then, you know, retires her, as they call it. But it's not that exciting to me and doesn't add pretty much anything to the movie. Okay, go on.
I think, well, that one, and you're talking about the original replicant, right? The guy that Rachel saves him from? I think that's the extent of how important that one is. It's just that Rachel saves him. But the other one, I really like that moment. I mean, it's really drawn out and it's definitely excessive. But when she dies, the movie plays it out like a tragedy. It's not like a triumph. He doesn't celebrate in any way. The first thing he does is goes to get alcohol, and he looks distraught. And I like that. To me, it's like he's not excited about doing this. He doesn't like killing replicants. He doesn't take joy in it. And to me, that I feel like that was necessary at least once.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's extended and so long.
It is long. Yeah.
And the payoff is just for, he clearly, again, doesn't want to kill replicants. I get we actually see it now in his emotions, but it's just so many parts of this movie are just long and drawn out, which I think if more concise, we could have added more into like the meat of the philosophy. Even Roy's just random babbling at the end. I know it adds to it a little bit, but I mean, I think if you just take out all the monotonous like parts of him, like them running from each other essentially all the time, and add in like what this movie's really about, and that is what is it to be human, rather than making it this neo-noir detective movie like heavy in that aspect at all. I'd rather it just be either more about this idea of what it is to be human or just a neo-noir detective. I think the two, for me, just intermingle with each other too much and therefore take away from both aspects of the movie.
I guess I view the movie as like it's prompting this really fascinating question that maybe, before the credits start in the beginning, you think, oh, that's an easy question to answer. I have my answer. I know what it is. Here's a short list of answers. But then the movie is like, well, wait a second. Here are all these moments that unfold that maybe by the end have you rethink your answer. Instead of giving us answers, it provokes you into questioning your own sense of the answer to that question. And maybe for like 1982, that was sort of the extent to which people could appreciate it, because they didn't really even appreciate it in 82. Like maybe hopefully the sequel is meatier. I mean, I think it should be. Otherwise, why bother? And so hopefully the sequel is meatier, while this, I think, was just a first step that you could take in 1982 in regards to popular film.
I could see that, especially because it's 82. But I think even the fact that I don't know. The fact that it's already norm for people to be creating not robots, but human beings, essentially. Like, I mean is they're not mechanical, they're organic, but they only have a lifespan of 4, and we're just going to use them to, like, consume, essentially, as products. I think that would have already sparked like a ton of controversy, and there are bigger ideas out there, but it seems like that was just immediately accepted, and now we're only like going against it because of these 4 rebels and actually thinking about it. When I think it would have already been what?
There was a mutiny, wasn't there? I thought there was a separate mutiny, and there was a mutiny, and then they were banned from Earth, and then they created the Blade Runners to track them down. And then these 4 were trying to sneak back onto Earth.
Yeah.
So there was some conflict, but it was just way before.
I guess that's true.
Who knows when, I guess. I don't know. I mean, semantics.
I know. I don't know. It's just hard for me to get on board of this, I don't know, this tiny squabble that's really elongated rather than I would have just loved to focus on this central idea and really expand it out. Rather than just scratching at the surface and like seeing the tip of the iceberg of, they act more like humans sometimes. It really does suck to only live 4 years. Like, these are just like, they're ideas, but not like, they're kind of obvious at the same time. Even if at the beginning, I agree, you think you have your answer, and by the end, could be a little different. I still don't think what sways that is like that huge. Like, once you're like, oh yeah, they only live 4 years, that that sucks.
It's a really fascinating concept and world, and I definitely understand like a want and a desire to. There's just so many different threads and stories and ideas that you could take with this fascinating premise, and so I get like wanting more. And I think that's why there's a sequel. I know, who knows why it took so long, but I think there's definitely a reason for there to be more told with this world and this story.
But we'll see. The sequel kind of looks just like an action movie.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm curious.
Which, again, I would be fine with just an action movie or just a movie that heavily focuses on the concepts behind this movie. But we'll see. So you didn't take a look at any of the extra anything? Did you only watch the final cut twice?
I only watched the final cut twice. I thought that would be better. After I was planning on watching 2 different cuts, but then after I watched the final, I wanted to watch the final again. Yeah. But I did look up, like, I heard some of Harrison Ford's voiceover.
Yep.
It's just terrible. Oh my gosh. I feel so bad for the people that experienced that for the first time. Like, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Because it's real bad.
Oh, yeah.
Oof. And I remember in college, I think it was a screenwriting class. It was just like this exercise to, like, have us understand that you're going to get feedback and you're going to get notes and you need to, like, you need to be able to handle that. We saw a memo, I think it was between 2 studio executives talking about Blade Runner, and they just tear it to shreds. And it's all like, I don't understand what's going on. No one's going to like this. No one's going to understand it. We need to make it clearer. We need moments that clearly define what's happening. And they talk about how necessary the voiceover is and all this stuff. It's just like this scathing memo. And it was kind of crazy to read about that and to read about, like, a cult classic like this being torn apart by studio executives. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So you dived into differences, right?
I mostly just looked up there's like a Final Cut alternate ending, and you can watch it on YouTube. Although I don't think it's Final Cut because it totally has the voice. Well, no. So I watched the Final Cut ending, and then I watched a theatrical ending, which I think is actually just the same thing. One just has the voiceover.
Okay.
And so first you hear the voiceover, and it's absolutely terrible. It sounds like Harrison Ford is just, like, wanting to die while he reads it. So that's terrible. But then the alternate ending is, so it's like after the elevator scene, you now see Deckard and Rachel in this car driving over, like, green hills. Like, completely bright day, green hills, greenery everywhere. And then apparently they use a bunch of Stanley Kubrick's, like, aerial footage from The Shining that I guess he didn't use. And it's just, like, shots of, like, hills and greenery. And it's like, this doesn't match the movie I just watched for 2 hours, so I don't know why.
That's interesting. I mean, I understand that contrast, but yeah,
I do, but it completely takes you out. Like, I understand it's the end, and I can understand why you want that contrast, but it was too much for this film.
Yeah, sure.
Way too much.
Yeah, because the ending's not happy and bright. It's still kind of bleak.
And that ending's called, like, the happy ending.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like, Rachel at one point says, like, we're made for each other or something like that.
Oh, but that's interesting if they're both replicants.
Yeah, it is interesting if they're both replicants.
Okay. Man. So weird.
I didn't really care for their romance either.
Yeah, I think it's more... their romance more plays into the ideas and themes than it does play as its own organic romance.
Yeah, in the movie. That's what I'm saying. I feel like so many of these, like, ideas don't actually, like, fit into the movie plot line, really. Mm-hmm. They're just, like, they're there. Like, she's, like, just always crashes an apartment, and every time they're together, I kind of just feel weird.
Yeah, I mean, especially the scene where he forces himself on her.
Yep.
You know, like, the first time around, that was like, this is strange. And I honestly, like, the first time I saw it, I chalked it up to it being in the 80s. Like, the 80s was weird. That was a weird time.
Weird time for us all.
And that's a product of the weird 80s. The decade where, you know, the movie Weird Science came out. Like, watch Weird Science, and that's how strange the 80s were. But the second time, it's exactly like, I think it's so well crafted and intentionally weird and awkward, because in that moment it's like he is being this cold, calculated person, she's being more human. But then again, he tells her say kiss me, tell me that you want me. And that's what's more human than that desperation of wanting to be wanted. So it's this complex moment of like, they're both acting human, but he's acting also like a replicant. It's just crazy. But she is a replicant.
He is a replicant, so.
That moment to me the second time around, it's like, this is a great movie. Because it's so complex and interesting.
It's not that complex is the problem.
Yes, it is.
These it's not that complex though. They're still created as humans, even if they have like a shorter lifespan. They still feel the same, so of course they feel the same. I feel like we don't. I don't know. See, other than their shorter lifespan and them themselves like wanting more life, I don't know. I wish we were more in the outrage of what this all actually means and that we don't treat them like humans. The only 4 people that really care in this movie are those 4 replicants. Even if in the past there was a huge mutiny, which I still assume was just the replicants, not the humans. I don't know. Because they made them based off humans, so they're still very much like humans. So the fact that they act like humans doesn't seem that complex to me. I think you'd have to delve in deeper for it to actually get complex for me. But that's just my 2 cents. And I would think the most of the world disagrees with me. So
I think for its time, it's this. I think it's an important movie, and it's done a lot of great stuff for movies after it. And I think for its time, I think it's right to be considered like a classic or a cult classic or whatever you want to call it.
I will say for its time that I think it did do a lot for both sci-fi and movies in general. I both aesthetically and like I've said, I do like what they scratch at, and I assume that this is one of the first movies to kind of get into that as like that idea, and that I appreciate. I just wish now that I'm looking back, even if it was the first one or close to the first one, or the like one that was most bold about it, I wish it had been extrapolated more now looking back.
Yeah.
Like maybe if I lived in that time and be like, oh man, they're talking about these crazy ideas that have never been talked about before. But now in the age I live today, I wish it had been more complex, talked about more of it.
Yeah, I think that speaks to our time for sure. Like what you were saying, like I think audiences now expect more because it's just progress. You know, if this is ground that that's been well tread before, then yeah, we want to push the envelope and go even further. But I don't know, if we look at some other movies from this time, I think the ideas and the complexities of the movie as they were groundbreaking for the time.
But I mean, there are also, I get that this is film, but there are other stories and books and written works that talked about ideas like this and extrapolated on them. And I get you can probably do that easier in like a philosophical work where you're literally just writing that down. But at the same time, I think they still could have if they wanted to. They just didn't. There are certainly some scenes that I really like, though. For example, even though I think the overall just monologue of Roy at the end is silly, there's some contrasting in his monologue compared to when Leon was about to kill Deckard earlier. They say some of the similar things, but they have completely different meanings, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Just to show how they're both replicants with the same goal, but they both have very different ideas.
Yeah. They're still individuals.
Yeah.
And I like that Roy saves him. That he saves Deckard.
Like, even the last thing they say, Leon says, "Wake up, time to die," and is about to, like, push his eyes in, because apparently that's what they love to do. And then, but Roy says the same thing. He goes, "Time to die," but he's talking about himself, and then he dies. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. That I like that monologue. I like that whole thing.
I figured you did.
Liked it.
I don't. The tears in the rain is kind of cool. That's it, though.
It's just, that's when at the end of my first viewing, when the whole thing started to unfold, when he saves him, when he starts to talk, it's like, yeah, I like this.
He howls like a wolf earlier. He's crazy. He pushes nails into his hands to look like Jesus for no reason. And
he pulls the dove out of nowhere, right?
Yep.
He just all of a sudden has a dove.
Yep. All this silly imagery and a silly monologue for no reason. I think that's another reason.
It's not no reason. It's the whole point of the movie.
Oh my gosh. I don't like it at all. It just feels too artsy for not enough complexity behind it. It drives me nuts. Anyone can pull these ideas and just present them to you, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being overcritical. I probably couldn't do it. I'm not a filmmaker, but I don't know. It just wasn't for me. If you enjoy it, not just you, everyone, you in general, it's fine. Yeah. I don't.
I wasn't sure if you were gonna turn around or hate it more. I was confused. I wasn't sure how you were gonna feel about it.
And I keep using the word complex. I don't know. It's not necessarily it has to be super complex or anything. I just don't think it's as complex as people talk about it being, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I used it a lot too, and oftentimes I probably meant conflicting. It's complex in the fact that there's no good or bad human or replicant. It's all gray and conflicted, and that's what I like. There's a struggle and a conflict throughout the whole thing, and that's what I like. And
I can get behind that. That I will agree with. And so what I mean by when I keep saying, like, oh, it's not complex enough, is just that I think it's more difficult to get into what's actually being discussed. I think it's much more difficult to just show that. Like that one scene you talked about where he, like, feels bad for killing someone, essentially. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, you are killing another person. So I don't know. That's where it just, like, I think it's weird that they split them so much that replicants clearly aren't humans in this universe. And so then that creates us conflicting. But I think in reality, if we created people, we would treat them as people and not, I would hope, right?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It's true. I guess there's a lot of, I don't know, things that could go against that as well. But I guess it's just weird that it's already set in this, replicants are for sure replicants, humans are for sure humans. And so when you kill a replicant, it's not like killing a human when it very much is so. But it just seems so obvious to me, I guess. And so therefore, in that, I don't know. That's where I wish we could have dug a little deeper. But whatever. That's how I feel about this movie.
Yeah. We'll see where it goes.
All right, ready for topic time?
Yeah, all right, let's do topic time. So today we're talking about I thought this would be an interesting topic when you told me that you hated this movie on the first watch. So I thought it would be fun to talk about overrated movies.
Oh gosh.
That's kind of it. So I've got a list of some movies that are considered, classics, great movies, but also that I think maybe might be a little overrated.
Which I think is funny now, because now that you've seen Blade Runner, I assume that you radically do not think this is an overrated movie.
I do not. I don't think it's overrated. I think maybe it's interesting because I don't think it's like the greatest movie of all time, but I do really like it, and I think of the sci-fi movie genre, it's probably one of the best. But I don't think it stands up to like The Godfather, which is on my list, by the way.
Come on, The Godfather.
Do you think that's overrated?
I don't know. We've talked about The Godfather before.
Mm-hmm. The Godfather, I think, is interesting, and I wrote it on a list because it's like, it is widely considered the best movie of all time. And so, of course, the movie that holds that spot will like let a lot of people down. But that being said, I do not think it's overrated. When I saw it for the first time, I was like, I totally get it. This is amazing.
So you've talked about this before. When I first saw it, I was not like that.
Right.
It took me warming up to. And I still, because of that, don't think it's the greatest movie of all time either. I think it's a really awesome character study, but that's it. Like, it's a really, really well done character study. and it's very interesting, and it's by no means a bad movie. But I think I would consider it overrated in the sense of calling it the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah. People just have given it that title over the years, whether or not the movie wants it,
Yeah. But absolutely, it's a fantastic, like, just watching this character descend into what he becomes.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Greatest movie of all time? Probably not. But what is the greatest movie of all time? Let's be real.
I don't know. If you had to... See, I think that's the issue. If you had to pick one, I'd probably pick that one.
I don't know if I would.
What would you pick?
I don't, well, one, I don't think I'd pick one, but I don't think it'd be The Godfather either. I think it's missing too many other elements, in my opinion.
But that's the thing. I think everyone feels that way. They feel the same way you do, but someone did pick. Like, if you had to pick so that you could write a book about it and sell a book, like, people chose The Godfather, and it just has become the choice because it's hard to choose, but if you had to, I think it would be The Godfather.
I don't think so.
If you can't pick another one, then it's The Godfather.
That's not true.
Pick another one. You can't. There isn't another one that can beat
The Godfather is not that good. It's not by default the greatest movie ever, and that's what I don't like about it.
What's better than The Godfather?
Everything.
Okay.
Why is it the greatest movie of all time? We're past. It's a very, very good movie, very great movie. We'll give it that, but let's talk about why is it the greatest movie of all time.
I don't think. I think it's a movie that is it's near flawless on every level. I think it's performing, like, in terms of a film production, on every level it's succeeding. And it's telling the story it wants to tell, and it's doing it so well. And you really do watch someone change before your very eyes. And there are no shortcuts. There are no montages. There's no voiceover narration. It's just a series of events, of things that happen to this character. And it's done so well. Like, I don't think a movie does what it does to its extent better than The Godfather does. And I think, like, ultimately, film as a genre is meant to tell stories like that. Like, to watch a character change before your eyes in a way that you can't.
If that's what it became.
It's like, it's doing what... It's telling a story that might have been told in other mediums, but it's taking advantage of the fact that it's film. We're literally seeing it happen. And it's incredible.
It's all right. I just don't think it's the greatest story ever told. I think that's what it really comes down to for me. Yes, it's this really awesome character descent, as I've mentioned, and I agree with you that I think everything it sets out to try to do, it succeeds at. But I just don't think it's the greatest story of all time, and therefore, it just falls short.
That's a different thing, though. Greatest story is different than greatest movie.
I know. That's why I'm in a pickle.
Are there any movies out there that, like, have bothered you by how overrated they are?
Oh, I'm sure there are.
like 2001, A Space Odyssey. We watched that together finally a couple years ago.
Yes.
So I think I probably appreciate the movie more than you do, but it's certainly not enjoyable. Like, it's a chore to sit through. I mean, it's doing a lot of great things, and it's visually, like, I would say visually like a masterpiece for what it was able to accomplish in the 60s, but it's not enjoyable.
Yeah, I would agree. Not enjoyable.
So I think overrated in that sense. Like, who like wants to watch 2001? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a movie that people always want to watch that I despise.
Is it Pulp Fiction?
No, Pulp Fiction's great.
Yeah, I think so too.
Are you just going down your list right now?
Pretty much. Because, I mean, Pulp Fiction's one of those movies that people have been talking about ever since it came out. And, you know, I'm sure there are people out there that think it's overrated, but not me.
Gone with the Wind, am I right?
Gone with the Wind.
No, I don't
really
actually
long.
know. I've watched it in like the 8th grade and haven't seen it since, so I can't actually say anything about it.
Have you seen Goodfellas?
Yeah. No. Yes. I haven't finished it.
Oh, man.
I know.
So, I love Goodfellas, And Goodfellas is talked about a lot, and we studied it in school in several different classes. I think it's fantastic, except I hate Ray Liotta, and I think that performance is so bad.
You say that all the time.
He's so over the top. Like, everyone's performing so great. Like, Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro, everyone's so great. And then Ray Liotta is just in the middle of it all, just hamming it up. And the movie is so good that it's still enjoyable despite him.
Have you seen Dune?
I have not seen Dune.
I'd be interested. So I feel like so many movies that I would think are overrated now would be perfect for this podcast because I watched them so long ago and have just like been like, oh, that wasn't as good as I thought it would be, and never watched it again. Like
I want to do Forrest Gump.
Okay,
I think that would be a good one for the podcast. 'Cause I'm not sure that it's like the best movie that everyone thinks it is. Like, Tom Hanks is great in it, but is the movie that good? I don't know. That's one to rewatch.
Doing Forrest Gump, Dune, so many movies. Just like, I feel like it's hard to find an actually overrated movie because overrated movies are usually just they're like not your cup of tea.
Sure.
For it to be considered overrated, I feel like a majority of people have to enjoy that movie, and then there's just some people who don't.
What about like the Titanic?
I've never seen the Titanic. And
really?
I mean, I've seen pieces of it, but not enough to even say that I've seen, like, I just missed the end or anything. I've, like, just seen a few scenes.
You gotta watch the Titanic.
Do you think you have a most overrated movie of all time? In your opinion?
I haven't seen Scarface in a really long time with Al Pacino, but I want to say Scarface.
Why's that?
Like, maybe I need to see it again, but I just don't remember it being interesting at all. Like, in any way.
Yeah.
But maybe I need to see it again. Maybe it's been a really long time. I also don't really love Al Pacino.
Why don't you love Al Pacino?
I just feel like he did the great in Godfather.
He did the greatest movie of all time. And
anything else, though. Like, it's like, it like hurts him to have been in one of the best movies ever. Because, like, what else is he going to do?
See, he even said one of the best movies of all time. Proven. Not the best movie. I'd have to think real hard if I could. I don't know if I'd find what I thought was the most overrated movie of all time.
You haven't seen Casablanca, right?
Nope.
You gotta watch Casablanca, because I think you might not like it. Yeah,
I know. I was about to say, I bet that would fall in my category of overrated movies.
Man, love Casablanca.
Especially because every single person I've talked to has said it's the best.
It's so good.
We'll see. What about Avatar?
I mean, I was thinking about that, but I feel like society, successfully turned on it.
Of the movie? Yeah.
6 months later, everyone was like, wait a second.
Hold on.
What happened?
I think it's hard to find a most overrated movie of all time.
Yeah.
It might even be one we've already done. I think the Blair Witch Project's super overrated.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I agree.
I think a lot of scary movies specifically, because you find so many people that say, oh, this is the scariest movie of all time, and then it's not at all.
Like, The Ring was super overrated when it came out.
Yep.
Not scary.
Not scary at all. Do you think there's an overrated Disney or Pixar movie?
Ooh. I think Frozen's overrated, absolutely.
Yep. Frozen is just a poor man's Tangled, you know?
I barely like Frozen. Like, there are some days that I'm like, okay. But that's the extent. Most days, it's like, what a dumb movie.
I'm just imagining you, waking up one day, and that's, your thought of waking up in the morning. Nope, not today, Frozen.
Not today, Frozen.
That's just, your sole purpose of existence that day is not enjoying Frozen.
Because you are absolutely right. It is the poor man's Tangled. Tangled is superior in every way.
Every way.
Yeah.
I'd say the only one is that Frozen kind of challenges that traditional falling in love. Not with the sister thing at the end. That's kind of cool, silly, whatever, I guess. But just the beginning when she thinks she's fallen in love with that guy, but he's not. He's a jerk. Oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
But that's about it. I think Tangled's better in every other way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think I've run out of overrated things to talk about.
Yeah. It's probably an overrated topic.
Probably.
All right, yeah, let's wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. If you want to keep supporting the podcast, it'd be awesome if you could share it with a friend or tweet out the link on Mondays when we post them. That would be great. And if you want to leave us an iTunes review, even better. Next week, we're talking about Kubo and the Two Strings. I'm fairly certain that's correct. So tune in for that next week. It's going to be a fun one. And we'll see you next week.
See y'all.